Just before a crucial summit, a surprising new development emerged when King Charles spoke out for the first time, revealing sensitive details concerning Prince Harry. According to the sources cited, this information is not simply a family matter, but is linked to institutional decisions, including a review of royal privileges and titles. The incident is sparking much debate, as the line between personal responsibility and royal duty is once again under the scrutiny of global public opinion. If you want to understand the full context behind this story, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to stay updated on the latest analyses of the British royal family and other sensational developments. The crown has never been a privilege bestowed unconditionally. It has always been understood as a rigorous commitment tied to duty, discipline, and public responsibility. According to sources close to the palace, that was the firm message King Charles III is believed to have emphasized in a private exchange taking place behind the heavy doors of Windsor Castle in recent days. For months, public opinion believed the king prioritized his fatherly role, patiently seeking to keep tensions within the family. However, what is happening behind the scenes appears far more complex, cold, and institutional. This is not simply a personal disagreement, but a sign of a profound adjustment in how the royal family views and protects itself. According to the sources cited, a rigorous internal review process has been triggered, placing the Duke and Duchess of Sussex in an unprecedented institutional and legal position. As the crucial royal meeting at Sandringham approached, King Charles reportedly shed his role as a patient father to assume the position of a head of state who placed the long-term interests of the monarchy above personal feelings. The focus was no longer on reconciliation, nor on symbolic attempts at mending the relationship. The core issue lay in information and documents that Prince Harry believed would never leave private archives. These documents, according to accounts, were presented to the Privy Council as part of an argument for considering the most drastic measures within the institution. The picture painted was one of a quiet room, stacks of thick files, and a king concluding that the institution he had prepared his life to lead could not be weakened from within. According to many sources, Prince Harry may have believed his position was unshakable, that royal ties could coexist alongside controversial personal choices. This assumption is thought to have led to miscalculations, blurring the lines between personal interests and royal duty. The king is believed to have recognized serious issues concerning norms, obligations, and accountability far beyond the media controversies or private life stories that once dominated public attention. Strategic meetings, where Prince William is said to have discussed matters frankly with his father, reflect a royal family willing to use institutional tools to protect itself. Provisions rarely mentioned in historical decrees, designed to handle exceptional situations, are now being carefully and systematically reviewed. Time, according to sources, is becoming a crucial factor, as any decision could have long-lasting consequences for the title, role, and image of the monarchy in the modern era. Recent signals suggest this is not just a fleeting news wave. According to close sources, King Charles is not simply grieving the loss of a father, but is also determined to reshape the core norms of the monarchy for future generations. The atmosphere at Sandringham in recent days has been described as heavy and somber, not only because of the winter weather. It was here that the king is believed to have shared with his close advisors a comprehensive dossier reflecting a thorough review of the financial and legal aspects involved in the preceding period. This document, as described, is not intended to offer immediate public conclusions, but rather reflects a broad internal assessment of the responsibilities, duties, and boundaries of the royal role in a rapidly changing world. The information that King Charles allegedly presented revolves around actions considered to be direct violations of the 2020 separation agreement, a document that Prince Harry apparently regarded as merely guiding principles rather than having binding constitutional weight. According to sources familiar with royal legal processes, this dossier includes evidence that Harry sought to register trademarks for symbols and identifiers associated with the royal family, intending to use them for new global business ventures, despite clear prior restrictions and warnings. However, internal assessments suggest this is only the tip of the iceberg. The more serious issue, and believed to be the core reason for the king's hardline stance, concerns alleged clandestine communications between the Sussexes and a foreign government agency. These exchanges, as described, risked undermining the principle of political neutrality, considered a vital foundation of the constitutional monarchy. For Charles, who had spent his life maintaining the delicate balance between government, church, and the crown, this was seen as an unacceptable line to cross. A palace source whispered that, in the king's eyes, Harry had shifted from the image of a disgruntled son to that of a potential destabilizer of the constitutional order. When Charles fully accessed the contents of these documents, the atmosphere in the room, according to the account, became heavier and more somber than ever. The suspected activities went beyond financial or commercial decisions. They showed signs of building a parallel sphere of influence, operated from Harry's residence in California. The king was said to have realized that every conciliatory gesture, every personal concession, risked being translated into content for subsequent media deals, further undermining the royal family's position. One of the most shocking allegations involved Harry possessing personal records containing private medical data belonging to King Charles, potentially for future publication. For Charles, this was a point of no return. While paternal feelings might have lingered, the decisions of a monarch were reportedly decisive. After reviewing the evidence and identifying potential ulterior motives, the king reportedly authorized the Privy Council to prepare the necessary documents for formal action. According to sources, Harry was completely unprepared for this reaction. He apparently believed his father would hesitate, constrained by public pressure and unwilling to retaliate. What Harry is believed to have misjudged was the king's level of commitment to protecting the institution for the future of Prince William and Prince George. The upcoming summit, viewed from this perspective, is not a negotiating table, but rather the implementation phase of a pre-established legal framework. Bringing hidden truths to light is expected to have consequences powerful enough to dominate global headlines. In constitutional monarchies, symbols are not merely ceremonial, but also possess real power. And titles are the instrument that conveys that influence. King Charles, according to sources, understood that if he wanted to neutralize the challenge from the Sussex branch in California, he needed to directly impact the foundations of their identity. This led to a reconsideration of the legal mechanism based on the 1917 decree, a declaration from the time of King George V that clearly defined who had and did not the right to bear royal titles. For years, Harry may have considered this an unshakable privilege, but Charles is believed to have identified a constitutional path that could fundamentally change that assumption. Legal experts associated with the Principality of Lancaster say the argument being developed revolves around the concept of a grave breach of duty. This perspective emphasizes that royal titles are not personal rewards or permanent designations, but rather expressions of responsibility and adherence to institutional norms. Instead of being a personal privilege, the royal title was seen as a functional position, inextricably linked to the duty of serving the crown. In this interpretation, when Harry proactively built profitable commercial ventures based on public criticism of the monarchy, he distanced himself from the role of a prince fulfilling his responsibilities. What was happening, according to sources close to the monarchy, was not the emotional frustration of a father, but rather the institutional governance of the head of the royal family, aimed at protecting the institution from exploitation and internal erosion. Information presented by Charles to his advisors at a closed-door conference revealed that the 1917 decree granted the monarch the authority to adjust by royal decree when circumstances changed. This authority allows for a review of the status of family members if they establish permanent residence abroad and engage in activities deemed inconsistent with royal norms and dignity. Harry's advisors reportedly reassured him that the king would never trigger such drastic measures for fear of public backlash. That assessment, given current developments, appears to have been misguided. According to legal sources, the king's legal team has prepared options to change Harry's title, reverting him to his civilian name Henry Mountbatten Windsor if he does not meet the final demands. This approach is described as precise and calculated, as it avoids the complex and public parliamentary procedures. This is a direct exercise of royal authority. By invoking that authority, Charles is believed to have sent a clear signal to the corporations and international partners collaborating with the Sussexes. The royal ties they rely on could end at any time. It is reported that the king had a frank discussion with Prince William, stating that the consequences of a betrayal of trust, if left unaddressed, could jeopardize the integrity of the next dynasty. This was no longer a family dispute, but a fundamental issue of the institution. In this view, removing a prince perceived as placing himself on the throne was seen as a necessary step to protect the foundations of the monarchy. Sources describe that a strict time frame had been set, and an unusual silence prevailed within the California elite. King Charles is believed to have issued a final demand with far-reaching implications beyond the borders of England. Harry is said to have very little time to agree to a binding confidentiality and non-publicly offensive agreement or face immediate legal action to revoke the royal decree. This is not simply a call for reconciliation, but a signal to end the commercial and social model centered around the Sussex brand. According to descriptions from within the palace, this is a tense race against time, forcing Harry to consider whether protecting his personal ego is worth sacrificing his royal status. In California, the atmosphere is said to be a mix of genuine anxiety and escalating legal action. Harry is said to be constantly in contact with legal teams in both London and Los Angeles, seeking to delay or slow down the process. However, the king's position is described as leaving no room for prolonged negotiations, as in the past. A senior official was quoted as saying that Charles had clearly laid out two paths, one for conditional restoration and one for complete removal. The decision rested with Harry. The pressure intensified as he realized an unavoidable reality. Without his royal title, his commercial appeal in the American market could be severely diminished. Sources suggest he faces significant financial challenges, from a large mortgage to the costs of maintaining security and public relations. If his name were removed from official royal records, Harry risked losing not only his title, but also the financial security that has sustained his lifestyle since leaving Britain. According to numerous sources, it was Prince William who pushed for the tough 48-hour deadline. He reportedly encouraged his father not to waver, arguing that every moment Harry retained his princely title while publicly challenging the throne meant further damage to the institution. The message was simple and without gray areas, either absolute silence or complete elimination. As twilight descended upon Althorpe and the Norfolk coast, Harry realized that both his father's financial support and the Spencer family's resources now lay in the shadow of a king whose patience had reached its limit. The decisive battle for Sussex's identity and status was approaching its critical moments. While legal proceedings accelerated in London and financial pressure mounted in California, an equally crucial front was quietly unfolding about 70 miles north of the capital at Althorpe Estate. This is the ancestral residence of the Spencer family. At the heart of the story is Charles, the 9th Earl Spencer, who once promised to protect Diana's sons from the harsh realities of royal power. However, over time, that family promise seems to have turned into an inescapable political burden. Sources suggest that King Charles and Prince William placed Earl Spencer in a dilemma. Either side with his nephew who had left the royal family, or demonstrate unwavering loyalty to the king. A message reportedly delivered to Althorp by the king's private secretary was not a sentimental appeal. It was described as a chilling warning from the center of power. According to this, what Charles revealed concerned Harry's alleged attempts to exploit and commercialize private documents from the Spencer family archives in lucrative media deals. The king reportedly made it clear that any support for Harry at this time could be seen as aiding a force attacking the very institution the Spencer family had served for centuries. This placed Earl Spencer in an extremely difficult position. Harry was still the son of his late sister, the nephew Diana had worried about and protected the most. If the Earl yielded to royal pressure and decided to restrict access to the family archives, he risked severing his relationship with his nephew and becoming the next target of public narratives about the Sussexes. Conversely, if he viewed the matter pragmatically, he understood that Prince William was the future king, the one who held the real power of the monarchy. Confronting William and the king could lead to social and political isolation for the entire Spencer family. Some sources also suggest the king is urging the estate managers at Althorp to impose restrictions on any additional resources for Harry, arguing that he is being influenced by outside forces perceived as adversaries. This, as described, is not merely a matter of family loyalty, but also a financial strategy to prevent those properties from becoming entangled in legal disputes in the United States. As a result, the Spencer family is said to be deeply divided along the fine line between kinship and power. As the long-awaited summit approaches, Earl Spencer understands that any choice he makes will mean breaking a sacred vow to the one he loves. The romantic facade of family protection at Althorp seems to have crumbled, giving way to the stark reality of power and its consequences. While pressure is spreading across rural England, sources suggest that Prince William's deepest anxieties are being intensely triggered thousands of miles away, in courtrooms in Los Angeles. To much of the public, restricting Harry's titles and assets is easily perceived as a long-standing family feud. However, according to sources familiar with the situation, the motivations behind these recent moves are believed to have gone beyond personal sentiment, shifting to a cautious legal approach. Prince William, as heir apparent, is said to have presented the king with a risk analysis focusing on the legal implications of royal assets being subject to the California legal system. This document is described as highlighting a potential weakness. In some cases, private property could be considered common property if legally mixed. According to circulating analyses, the greatest concern lies not in the present, but in future scenarios. If a marital dispute were to arise in the U.S., the idea of a local court considering access to symbolic assets, such as mementos associated with Princess Diana, would be unacceptable to William. For him, it's not just about money, but about memories and family heritage that need to be strictly protected. In this context, moves to adjust the title and financial structure are seen as a strategic step. These changes, according to supporters, could significantly reduce the likelihood of legal disputes outside of the UK, while strengthening control over trusts and inherited assets. William is believed to be pushing for safeguards to ensure that tangible assets remain within the framework of British law, avoiding becoming subject to negotiation in any overseas legal proceedings. This tough approach has been criticized by some as cold, even harsh, prioritizing the preservation of the legacy over fraternal affection. However, from the perspective of those involved, It is an attempt to build a legal fortress to prevent any possibility of the royal legacy being adjudicated by legal systems outside the jurisdiction of the UK. The message is said to be clear. The core values of the royal family will not become a variable in international legal disputes. Simultaneously, financial analyses highlight the increasing pressure on the Sussex family. The American lifestyle is considered to be quite resource-intensive, while major revenue streams from the entertainment industry are no longer as stable as before. Agreements that were once expected to provide long-term cash flow have encountered difficulties, raising questions about their future financial sustainability. With traditional safety nets tightening, every decision regarding assets and titles becomes even more sensitive and far-reaching. Nevertheless, the financial burden continued to weigh heavily as the tens of millions of dollars in mortgage payments and a cumbersome public relations apparatus continued to drain resources. According to those familiar with the situation, Harry's biggest worry was security. Since no longer receiving public-funded protection, he was forced to maintain a very expensive private security force. His annual living expenses were estimated to be equivalent to those of a head of state, reaching several $million, creating significant pressure in the absence of a stable income from inheritance or new contracts. Given this reality, Harry is said to be beginning to feel the fragility of his current position. With the privileges associated with his title gone, he must rely entirely on his own image building and personal brand, which is inherently volatile. The prolonged financial pressure has been described as causing him anxiety and even suspicion of everything happening around him. From Harry's perspective, William's actions were not protective, but rather punitive. While his brother held duchies, palaces, and symbols of power, Harry felt left with only a mortgage and fragile media projects. For him, restricting access to the inheritance felt like a direct blow to the last remaining connection to his mother's memory. The dream of building a new life in America gradually turned into a constant financial worry, and the Sussex family was forced to confront the reality that fractured relationships could hardly provide unconditional support. The atmosphere in the California mansion, according to those around him, became heavy and tense, as if besieged by an invisible pressure. In this situation, Harry was reportedly desperately seeking a way out, constantly consulting with lawyers and media advisors to break free from the tightening constraints. Some sources suggest he has sought to reach out to his maternal relatives, hoping to find sympathy within the Spencer family, who still hold Princess Diana's desire for her children's freedom as sacred. Keeping these channels open is considered crucial, because if that last source of support closes, their current lifestyle in America could quickly become unsustainable. The feeling of abandonment and distrust is said to have deepened as Harry believes the very institution he left now has enough influence to financially isolate him. In his private thoughts, he continues to compare the growing gap between the two brothers. One possessing almost every symbol of power, the other struggling to afford the costs of maintaining a global presence. For Harry, these actions mean nothing more than stripping away the last vestiges of his mother's spiritual legacy. The Sussex family gradually realized that Hollywood's heyday was over, and without a steady stream of inheritance, they faced the risk of significantly shrinking their lives. Every disbursement now came with strict conditions, making Harry feel like he had little control over his own assets. The financial siege, in that view, was very real. While public opinion focused on immediate reactions and superficial emotions, William was believed to be pursuing a long-term, patient, and protracted strategy, a game where each move was calculated to gain the ultimate advantage. Sources believed to be familiar with the inner workings of Kensington Palace suggest that William doesn't see this as a temporary clash between brothers, but rather as an inevitable institutional purge. From that perspective, He understands that Harry no longer has the time or financial resources to pursue a protracted legal battle in London's high courts. With financial constraints tightened, Harry's ability to sustain a large-scale media campaign is also becoming increasingly ineffective. This strategy, according to sources, stems from a core belief. The memory of their late mother is not something to be traded or exploited in the entertainment industry. It is reported that William has promoted the view that Harry is no longer capable of managing the Spencer family's resources. If the trust's security mechanism is activated, even though he's middle-aged, Harry will still be legally subject to close scrutiny, forced to account for any requests to access assets to the trustees, who will then report back to London. This is seen as a calculated exercise of soft power. It puts Harry in a no-win situation. Protesting will be met with the argument that all decisions are aimed at protecting his children's future. According to those close to him, William accepts becoming the villain in his brother's current story, believing that this will allow him to maintain his role as the last guardian of Diana's legacy in history. His greatest fear is that if he doesn't act quickly, the Spencer family's private archives could be used for further commercial media projects. A firm line has been drawn. The monarchy, according to this argument, can no longer pretend that everything is intact, but must acknowledge the reality that the health of the institution depends on loyalty and discipline. From William's perspective, the financial safety net that Harry has relied on for years is being dismantled piece by piece. The issue is not just the material value of the enormous sums of money, but the control over the narrative and the meaning of the legacy. The goal is to ensure the crown remains out of reach of foreign legal systems and global commercial powers. Once the limits are in place, the revocation of royal status is seen as merely a matter of procedure, closing a long-running chapter in the controversy surrounding the Spencer treasure and the Sussexes' position. The message sent is clear. You cannot break fundamental relationships and expect support to last forever. For years, Harry has spoken of freedom. Freedom from institutions, from the press, from family rules. But in the royal world, freedom always comes with a heavy price. Constantly attacking the origins of privilege, from this perspective, inevitably leads to its revocation when patience runs out. From the perspective of the institution's survival, supporters argue that King Charles and the Prince of Wales were not acting out of personal animosity, but rather practicing a form of strict love. They drew a clear line, asserting that the crown and the memory of Princess Diana were not tools for exchanging influence or benefits in the entertainment industry. This moment was seen as a turning point, ending the fairy tale image and forcing the monarchy to become more realistic, defensive, and less tolerant. These revelations are believed to have changed how the public perceives the entire story. Harry faced a difficult crossroads. A famous name but without official power, facing financial pressure as his traditional protection network gradually disappeared. If it wishes to survive in a world already witnessing these cracks, the monarchy cannot continue to deny the breakdown behind its palace walls. The removal of the Duke of Sussex, seen in this light, is not merely a family feud, but a test of the adaptability of an ancient tradition. Ultimately, the judgment rests with public opinion. Does the defense of heritage and honor justify harsh decisions, or is the price too high for familial ties? This debate reflects the broader question: can a long-established institution both acknowledge human fragility and maintain its power and discipline? And it is at this intersection that the story continues to be written by the individual observer's perspective. Thank you for watching the video until the very end. Your support is the greatest motivation for the channel to continue bringing you insightful, objective, and well-contextual analyses of royal stories and the entertainment world. If you found the content helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the latest videos. Leave a comment below to share your perspective. Every opinion contributes to a richer and more authentic discussion. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.